could not be more excited that on Peacock on Sunday night, you can watch an NFL playoff game. Browns and Steelers will be on NBC Sports as well as Telemundo, but it's also available for you to see right here on Peacock. And calling that game, along with Al Michaels, as always, is our friend here on the Rich Eisen Show. Thrilled as always to have Cris Collinsworth on such a big NFL week. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. I just want to know, how do I find somebody who defecates nickels to hang around with? That's all I want.
Well, you sit next to a man who knows how to invest them. How does that sound?
No. That man knows how to collect them. He doesn't know how to, he ain't passing any of those nickels out. I want somebody who passes them out.
I got it. Yeah. Al Michaels may be the only broadcaster who's checking his day trading during a commercial break, potentially, if it's anything like that.
Unbelievable. Now, Rich, you know as well as I do.
Yes.
He's wasting his time doing football, right? He's just wasting his time. I've never seen a guy that knows more about more stuff than Al Michaels. And the stock market, I watch some of those stock market shows every once in a while. I go, yes. I don't need to watch this. Al knows way more than those guys know about this stuff.
Now, look, when Terry McCauley joined your broadcast team, Chris, obviously he's terrific at it and knowing the rule book. I thought you already got a rules expert in the booth. His name is Al Michaels. I mean, Al knows everything about everything from clock management to whether this should be challenged or not. He knows that right on the spot. I mean, that's Al's specialty,
Yeah, but it turns into talk radio up there. Like, there's nothing I like better, and I'll do it during the broadcast. I'll just go, Al will start rambling on about the rules or something. I go, Terry, and then here we go.
Rip.
Then it's going to be like a battle royal at that point. So
exactly,
it's so nice though having Terry up there in the booth like that, because it's it's just go, hey, what do you got, brother?
Well, I mean, you're part of an A-plus broadcast team, Cris Collinsworth, here on the Rich Eisen Show. And before we do get to the playoffs, I was going to do this last, but we might as well, since we're talking about your broadcast team right here and there. I mean, talk about a story that plays out right in front of you that's not just about the final score or anything X's and O's. It was what we saw on Sunday Night Football in that fourth quarter that started with the head scratcher of Jalen Hurts being told to go for it on 4th and 4 rather than kick a chip shot field goal, and that's when the craziness began. Did you have any concept throughout the week talking to Doug Peterson that Nate Sudfeld would be put into a game that is in doubt in the fourth quarter of game 256, Chris?
Not that was in doubt. I think Al asked that question. He did mention that Sudfeld might get in the game and that he deserved a chance. And then Al or Freddie or somebody asked the question, well, what happens if it's a close game at the end? Would you still do it? And he was kind of, Doug, like, Right. So you never knew for sure what was going on. But then, you just start looking down there at the field and, you've been in the booth. You know what it's like. You can kind of tell when something's about to change down there. And we saw Jason Kelsey and Nate Sudfeld taking some snaps and, like, they are going to do this. They're going to make this change. And then every conspiracy theory starts floating through your head, and you're trying to be fair, but you're trying to be honest, and you're trying to do all kinds of different things there. It was a tough situation. There's no doubt about it. We were on a press call yesterday getting ready for the wild card game, and somebody asked me, did I get a call either from the Eagles or from the league based on my comments? And I said, no. I said, I've gotten phone calls in the past from various people, but I didn't over that.
No, I mean, look, Chris, you were just being honest when you said you wouldn't do it. Like, you just wouldn't be able to do what the Eagles either asked of Doug Peterson or he did on his own, knowing what the plan was as a group going into the game. I mean, it was just, and I speak, sitting in a chair where I was begging my team that I grew up in, the Jets, to tank all 16 games on behalf of Trevor Lawrence. It's a very difficult fine line, but when it comes down to it, the league with NBC is trying to and has built an outstanding property in Game 256, celebrating the competition of a completed regular season with hopefully the birth of a playoff game right in front of everybody's eyes. And it was just weird to see it turn into a preseason Week 4, Chris. It was just a really weird feeling to see.
I think that's what it was for me, too. It was because I watched the games during the course of the day as we're getting ready. And I was just so impressed. I was so impressed all year. Honestly, I really sincerely thought about buying Jet season tickets after I swear I did. I was like, you know what? This to me personifies everything I love about the NFL. Okay. You can talk about tanking, you can talk about all that, but when those damn players get on the field, they can't help themselves. They're playing, right? They're, it's just built into their DNA that they are going for the win, right? And the Jets did it, and God, they just couldn't help themselves. They had to win a couple of football games, and I was so impressed with that. I was like, that's awesome, man. That's what this league's all about. And then, there we were, at the end of the season, and all day long, teams that were playing for something, teams that had to rest players, teams that all. But the games were great. They were just going at it. They were just great all the way down to the wire. And so then you get to sort of this celebrated moment, this final game of the season. And I'm not, I can't pass judgment on anybody. I don't know if this was an organizational decision. I don't know if this is Doug just had seen things in practice that, he wanted Nate Sudfeld to get a chance. I have no idea. But, John Madden had a great saying that, you go in with a plan to do your broadcast and then a football game breaks out, right?
Yeah.
And then you adjust. You just adjust to whatever. And I think, and I always try to put myself in that position, right? If I were Doug Peterson, could I have made that move? And all I kept thinking to myself was, I couldn't have done this, and I was just, all right, whatever, just say it out loud. That was my innate feeling. Now, at the end of that was the fact that the Eagles lost that game. Did that benefit the Philadelphia organization? Yeah. Not just the first round pick is going to move from 9 to 6, your second round, your third round, everything is going to move up. And so if you added up the ability to move up 3 spots in every round of the draft, you probably would have to give up an early second-round pick to justify that, and maybe even a first-round pick, for all I know. So did it benefit the organization? Yes, but I also think that you have to go, you're going to have to explain that to a lot of players, that something, and maybe nothing was going on. Maybe it's just was pure and simple that Nate Sudfeld had so impressed them in practice that they wanted to give him a chance. I don't know. All I could do is react to it as a human being.
Cris Collinsworth, Sunday Night Football, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let us get to the game at hand for you and Al and the rest of the crew on Sunday night, Browns and Steelers. Let's start with the Browns. It's Thursday. I don't know if you've already spoken to coaches or if you plan, if you do have anything with Stefanski lined up or Alex Van Pelt, and how you expect this to all play out on the play calling front for an organization that's been waiting for this opportunity for 18 years, Chris.
Yeah, well, if I had those conversations yet, I wouldn't be telling you. But I know absolutely nothing. I'm Sergeant Schultz on this.
Okay.
So I can tell you now what I think. I don't think it'll be a huge deal because there's time to adjust. When they played the Jets earlier this year, and 24 hours before the game, they don't have any of their wide receivers available. That's a tough gig, right? That's hard. Now you have to make truly last-second sort of adjustments. But Kevin Stefanski is going to be in with Mike Prefer and the whole coaching staff, Alex Van Pelt, who will end up calling the plays. And they'll build a plan. And who actually calls those plays, as well as I do, that doesn't make that much difference. Plus, for the most part, it's Baker. Once he gets the line of scrimmage, going, all right, this is run pass, this is kill, this is, check with me. There's most of that stuff goes on at the line of scrimmage now. So I don't think it'll be a huge deal because of the fact that they have it. Now, what is sort of a huge deal in my mind is Joel Bitonio not being able to play.
Right.
This is an offensive line in Cleveland that has the two best guards. It's the best guard tandem in football. Wyatt Teller's come out of nowhere to be the best guard in football, and Bitonio is right behind him. Plus, Bitonio has been on that team when they were garbage, right? When they just couldn't beat anybody. So you really feel for him not being able to play in this one. But there's no question the biggest difference in any unit in the NFL from one season to next is what the Browns had on their offensive line a season ago and what they have now.
So now, obviously, we'll see Chubb, we'll see Hunt, we'll see that running game to the best of their ability. Let's flip the script to the Steelers now before we start just matching them up together here. You were there in Thanksgiving week. You had 5 days in Pittsburgh waiting for that game to be played between the Steelers and the Ravens. So you have seen firsthand the chess pieces of the Steelers thrown up in the air, and that was just one of two times. It happened obviously earlier in the season with the Titans with COVID. And then after that Thanksgiving game, when they finally did play it and did beat the Ravens, even though Tomlin said that they sucked in that game. Us sucking was the answer to a question of why were all those drop balls in that game that you still won. Then they lost 3 in a row. So what do you think this Steelers team is coming in off of a game where they rested starters, but a good half against the Colts that did actually get them through into the division? How do you assess this team after that big old setup I gave you, Chris?
Well, first of all, it wasn't Thanksgiving week. It was Thanksgiving month in Pittsburgh. So that's the way it was unbelievable. That game just refused to be played from Thursday to Wednesday. It was a full week to get that game played. But, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, are the toughest team to try to figure out coming into the season. And in many ways, the script is almost flipped, at least when it comes to these two offenses. It always felt like the Cleveland Browns were kind of gripping for an identity and what are they going to be. And, now they've got this great offensive line and they can run the football with two tremendous backs and a good young receiver in this Donovan Peoples-Jones that's kind of come out of nowhere. And ever since Odell Beckham got hurt, they sort of started spreading the wealth and I think build an offense in the passing game. But it's really built around this running game and around this offensive line, whereas the Pittsburgh Steelers forever, at least since I've been playing against them and calling their games, has always been this team that come fourth quarter and they play renegade over the loudspeakers. And when they have to just pound the football, they can pound it down your throat for the final 7 minutes of the game and hold on to a 4-point lead. And now they're a quick release, short passing game kind of a team. But what we saw in the Colts game was they were really struggling. That was the worst first half of offense I have ever seen from a Pittsburgh team against the Colts, the worst. And they followed it up with all these big plays in the second half and somehow came back from 24-7 and won the game. So, but they had to hit big plays. So I think it's going to be a little bit of that again. The Steeler running game has really struggled this season after the first 5 or 6 weeks or so. And now it's really going to be on these big play receivers, Claypool and Washington and Deontay Johnson and Juju. They have to make plays down the field to keep this offense cranking.
So let's put them together. And you, with the Pro Football Focus numbers that you have at your disposal, because that's your organization and it's just so terrific. NFL Network using the numbers too. So putting it all together, give me somebody we're not thinking of. Give me somebody that you think on Sunday night is going to be someone to watch for that we're not talking about right now, Chris. What do you got for me?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Probably Adrian Claiborne. Myles Garrett is obviously the featured attraction. He's been really sort of struggling, though, with the COVID disease that he had and trying to catch his breath. I think he's finally starting to see Myles Garrett come back. But Olivier Vernon, who really had a great second half of the season, tore his Achilles in that game the other day on the opposite side. Adrian Claiborne is a good player. You remember him in Atlanta, you remember him in several different places, but he's much more of a big, powerful, bull rushing kind of guy, which might play to their advantage because Ben gets rid of the ball so quickly. He's going to have to go through Alejandro Villanueva to get to Roethlisberger and maybe create a little bit of pressure. So that opposite player is going to be key. But then, all the guys coming back in their secondary, whether it's Denzel Ward, if he can make it back, Kevin Johnson, if he can make it back, Andrew Sendejo, have all missed some time either with COVID, concussions, whatever the case. And that's going to be the matchup. The matchup is going to be Pittsburgh's receivers against the secondary from the Cleveland Browns. You don't figure the pressure is going to get there because Ben hasn't let it get there all season. But I think that'll be the matchup.
Before I let you go, Chris, let's quickly talk about the Saturday night game on NBC called by our colleagues Mike Tirico and Tony Dungy. And to me, this is the most fascinating matchup of the weekend, quite frankly, because you've got Tom Brady playing at the top of his game, age 43, for the Bucs, who all season long we're wondering, when is the offense going to look like what we're expecting it to? And you could say about taking on Atlanta twice and Detroit, and that's what Brady and the offense should have looked like. But a lot of these shoulda games didn't look like that way for the Bucs all year long. And then here comes the Washington football team, and the guy who's going to be trying to one-and-done Tom Brady is a unicorn of a beast, interestingly enough, from Ohio State with Michigan at the quarterback position, in Chase Young, who basically said, bring him on. And I can't wait for it, and I think this is going to be highly competitive, and I'm wondering what you think of this matchup, Chris.
I think it's going to be really interesting. And while the focal point is going to be Tom Brady and the Washington defensive line, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, those guys are fantastic. But they do it with a four-man rush. Basically they're going to come, our guys are better than your guys, and we're going to try and cover it up on the back end. And there's a lot to cover up on the back end, whether Mike Evans plays or not. This is a good bunch. And I think Gronkowski took a while to get his feet underneath him early in the season. He had a bad shoulder. He wasn't blocking the way that he had been and for the most part of his career, but he's getting healthy. Antonio Brown's been hot. He's just been hot. Godwin's starting to get going here a little bit. We know about Evans and hopefully, Scotty Miller. So this is a bunch that can do quite a bit. But for me, the more interesting side of the ball right now is Alex Smith and what the Tampa Bay Bucs will do defensively. Todd Bowles and his guys over there. If you watched the Green Bay game earlier this year, Green Bay jumped out to a 10-0 lead, and basically the Buccaneers blitzed them into submission. I've never seen the Packers struggle against a blitz like that. And Alex Smith, we saw it in the game last week that, he's still really struggling with that calf injury, a guy that used to be able to move around so well. And of course, all the 17 surgeries and all that kind of stuff. So I'm 99.9% positive that they're going to be blitzing him to try and move him off the spot. We saw the impact that it had in that game a week ago. And if mobility becomes a factor, do we end up seeing Taylor Heineke? That's the X factor for me in this game, and how healthy Terry McLaurin is. McLaurin had a touchdown last week, but I think he was still struggling on that ankle a little bit. So maybe he's a week healthier than that. So we shall see.
Chris, thanks for the call, man. Happy New Year to you and yours. Can't wait to hear you and Al on the call on Sunday night. Thanks for joining today. Appreciate it.
You got it, buddy. Happy New Year to you.
Right back at you. That's Cris Collinsworth, the one and only. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.